You close the door to your house, you lock it, you leave the world outside. You roll down the blinds, turn on the light and sit on your couch, and you feel safe. I just want my privacy, you say. And everyone around you nods in agreement. It is your right, your comfort, your peace behind closed doors. You mind your own business, your house, and your tiny microcosm. Today, we call this a normal life. But if you were walking through the agora of ancient Athens, and you told someone that you only care about your own business, they would look at you with pity. If you told them you were an idiotes, an individualist, they wouldn't see a peaceful man, they would see a flawed man, a man who resigned from life itself. We live in an era where words have been inverted. We emptied them of their weight, washed them, made them convenient so they could fit inside our narrow rooms. And along with the words, our minds narrowed too. Today we're going to talk about the biggest linguistic trap of our time, about how we surrendered our freedom for a little piece of comfort, and how, from masters of our own destiny, we ended up as mere spectators in a theater where others write the play, others set the rules, and others ultimately decide whether we live or die. The stigma of the idiot. Let's go to the root of the word idiot. Idios. That which belongs to me, my own, my personal item, my own field, my own affairs. Up to this point, there is no malice. But things change when the idion, the private, is set against the kinon, the common. For the ancient Greeks, existence outside the community was inconceivable. Man was not an isolated unit that happened to live next to other units. He was part of an organism. If you tear the eye away from the body, it is no longer an eye, it is a dead tissue. The same went for people outside the city, outside the polis. When you refused to attend the meetings at the picnics, when you didn't care if your city would starve or take a decision about fighting or building something or whatever, you were an idiotes, the one who isolates himself, the detached one. Thucydides, in Pericles' funeral oration, preserved a phrase that should be carved into every school wall. Τον δε μηδέν τον δε μετέχοντα ουκ απράγμονα, αλλά αχρίον νομίζομεν, which translates to, we do not regard a man who takes no interest in public affairs as quiet or mindful of his own business. We regard him as useless. Why was he useless? Because the idiotis lives in his own closed microcosm. And because this microcosm is narrow, the idiotis slowly shrinks. He loses the ability to see the big picture. He is blinded by his own ego. It is no coincidence that this word traveled into foreign languages. It passed into Latin, English, and French. And what does the word idiot mean today? It means a fool, a person of low intelligence. This is the deepest truth of etymology. Detachment from the whole, the refusal of responsibility for the common good, leads mathematically to spiritual and intellectual blindness, to idiocy. Yet today we hold this idiot, this private individualist, as our role model. Mind your own business to get ahead, they tell us from childhood. And we did get ahead. We locked ourselves within four walls and handed the keys to our lives over to someone else. The oxymoron of representation. And what did we name this resignation? We named it representative democracy. But wait a moment. Let's drop the convenient labels of textbooks and let's think with a clear mind here. How can democracy be representative? Can freedom be transferred? Can your sovereignty over your own life be given away by proxy? If I grant you the right to breathe instead of me, will I remain alive? The phrase itself is a linguistic monster. It is like saying watery fire. Let's split the word democracy not through the sterile logic of modern sociologists, but with the power of ancient roots. The first component of the word is demos. Where does it come from? It comes from the Homeric da, which means the earth, the land. The demos is not a random crowd gathered in a stadium. It is not an audience liking a social media page or supporting something, nor a sum of consumers who happen to hold the same consumer identity. Demos means the people who are rooted in a specific place, people who share the same geography, breathe the same air, hold the same customs, traditions, and temperament. The demos has soil on its hands, it has memory, it has continuity. And the second component is Kratos. Today we hear Kratos, the state, and we think of what? We think of ministries, police, and faceless bureaucracy. It is a tainted word. But the ancient meaning of Kratos is different. It means might, power, solidity, and above all, self-sufficiency. Krateos, for a person, is the one who stands on his own 2 feet, the one who needs no one else to survive and define his rights, the one who has the physical and mental strength to be autonomous. When they were saying democracy, they meant something very specific. The demos, the community of people tied to their land and customs, being krateos, possessing absolute power and self-sufficiency to dictate their own destiny, without middlemen, without protectors, without representatives. The loss of self-sufficiency. Look around you. Look at today. Where is our self-sufficiency? Where is our Kratos in the ancient sense? Can we control what we eat? No. What is served on supermarket shelves is decided by a handful of multinationals and distant boardrooms. If the import valves close tomorrow, our cities will starve in 3 days. This is not self-sufficiency. This is captivity. Can we control what our children learn? No. School curricula comes ready-made, designed by technocrats who want to manufacture compliant employees, severed from their language and history. Can we control the laws that govern our lives? No. Laws are passed overnight in parliaments from even foreign centers of power. When others define your food, your education, your law, you're not krateos, you are dependent, you are a customer, a consumer, a fan, a follower. But for God's sake, do not call yourself a citizen. This is the great trick of representation. It gives you an illusion of power for 1 day every 4 years or so. It allows you to drop a paper in a box to choose the next manager of your misery, and in return, it strips you of your power for the remaining days. It allows you to choose who will rule over you, but forbids you from ruling your own life. You exchanged freedom, which demands effort, vigilance, and responsibility, for the comfort of the couch, for the privacy of the idiotis. But how do we break this cycle of subjugation? How do you escape the trap of idiocy? In my book, Beyond Evil, a Greek manual of freedom, I write a passage that I think answers exactly where we stand today. Let me read it to you. Freedom is not merely the absence of physical violence or external coercion. According to Greek thought, free is the one who rules over himself. Freedom is the conscious experience of human worth, that is, the capacity to recognize, examine, and choose in accordance with logos, with reason, and not with instinct, fear, emotion, or imposition. This, however, presupposes an internal catharsis. To have cleared the mental and psychological noise, to have seen and transcended your beliefs so that you can think truly freely as an act of awareness. In essence, freedom means liberation from all forms of bonds, whether physical, psychological, or mental. It is the ability to move unhindered toward where you detect the connection with Eros. And what is that? It is the part of yourself with a capital S that never ceases to create and give birth. The inexhaustible spring within you that feeds life with new meaning. The definition of evil. Evil is the denial of freedom. It is the denial of a man's potential to know himself and walk toward the truth. It is ignorance, which, as Plato teaches, is the root of all evil deeds. In Kratos, Socrates analyzes the word kakon, evil, as kakos ion. This means that which moves badly toward the worse or follows a disastrous and destructive path. Just as in physical science an ion is a charged particle with a specific direction and energy, so evil is a destructive charged force that leads to decomposition and distortion. This is precisely the essence of evil, its disastrous and destructive course. Evil is anything that distorts our inner worth and detaches us from our true being. Where the freedom of the other begins, our own ends, out of respect for the truth of our common nature. Therefore, if we want to become a demos again, as societies, if we want to reclaim our Kratos, our might, and our own self-sufficiency, we must first find our inner bravery. We must stop being slaves to our passions and our fears, and our ideologies. As the ancients put it, Thucydides, το εύδαιμον το ελεύθερον, το δε ελεύθερον το εύψυχον. The secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage. Pythagoras, ελεύθερον αδύνατον είναι τον πάθεση δουλεύοντα και υποπαθών κρατούμενον. It is impossible for a man to be free who is a slave to his passions and dominated by them. Plato, η άγαν ελευθερία έικε εις άγαν δουλείαν μεταβάλλειν. Excessive freedom seems to turn into nothing but excessive servitude. Democritus, οικείον ελευθερίας παρησίη. The hallmark of freedom is parousia, free and uninhibited speech. Δημοσθένης, την των δήμων ελευθερίαν ή των αγαθών ανδρών άμυλα φυλάτη. The freedom of the people is safeguarded by the emulation among honorable men. Perhaps it is time to step out of our narrow rooms, to leave the false security of the screen, and rediscover our common ground, our shared traditions, and our lost self-sufficiency. Otherwise, we will remain nothing more than a sum of idiots who were simply allowed to choose their chains. Think about it.